And hello, everybody, and welcome to the first Haunted Histories of 2025. And can I take this opportunity to wish you all a very, very happy new year? And if you have made resolutions, I hope you haven't broken them yet. I don't bother making any because I never stick to them. So I just keep them making new ones throughout the year of things I want to achieve. And one of the things I wanted to achieve this year was to have a chat with the guest I've got coming on. Now, I got to meet this person, and if you hear crunching noises in the background, that's my dog chewing his bone. He has to be within 2 inches of me at all times. So it's nothing paranormal, I'm afraid. I have been asked before when he's been making noises. Somebody said, "Can you hear that funny noise on the end of your line?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's the dog. It's nothing particularly. Unless you like dogs, it's nothing particularly exciting." Anyway, when I got to go to North America last May with my good friend Rachel Ashman, the wonderful Wes Coleman was there to show us around and well, take rather good care of us. And one of the places he took us to, he said he was going to take us to a Paracon in New Jersey. And it was this amazing mansion that is being restored. And I can honestly say I'm used. I mean, we have big houses in the UK. Obviously, we have stately homes. But this one kind of made me want to give it a hug. That's the only way I can describe this place. And I'm sure it's got some bad stuff that happened to it, but I just felt it wanted a cuddle. I just felt quite affectionate towards it. And we were lucky enough, Wes had organised this for us, and I can't thank him enough, to actually get to speak to one of the sort of I think he's a vice president. I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong, of the people who want to conserve this beautiful building, Mr. Kyle Mangus. Is that the correct title, Kyle?
Yes, yep, I'm the vice president.
Wonderful. I remembered. Yay.
Good job.
Thank you. And Kyle, I mean, I could probably just say this and then the podcast is done, really. But Kyle was so gracious in showing Rachel, myself, and Wes round and giving us his knowledge, even though it was a really busy event. I mean, you had Brian Cano was there, wasn't he? You had Katrina Weidman, Heather Taddy, and lots of other people there who for people to meet. And I believe they're coming back again. They're going in May, aren't they?
Yeah, May
Yeah.
3rd,
Yeah.
2025 is the, I think, third annual White Hill Mansion Paracon, which
Brilliant.
all the money that goes to whether we bring in from it goes right
Yeah.
back into the restoration. So it's a great cause.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a beautiful day when we were there. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't cold. It was quite easy to just wander around in effect, your shirt sleeves sort of thing. And it just had a really lovely atmosphere. And I've got a lot of time for Katrina and Heather, and I will be mentioning them later, later in this. In fact, it was quite funny because I met Katrina, whoa, when was it? I think it was about 2018. I met her. And I didn't expect her to remember me. And this actually made my day, Kyle. I didn't expect her to remember me. And I was waiting to say hello to her. And she just looked up and she went, "I know you." And I
Oh,
went,
that's
"Do
that's
you?
awesome.
Do you?" And she
That's
went,
awesome.
"Your name, it begins with a P. I met you in England. Penny." And she came out. She was, "Oh my God, so nice to see you," and gave me a big hug. And I was like, wow, that's like 5 years. And she still remembered. That actually made my day. And to get to chat to Heather and to get to meet Brian Cano, who's someone I look up to, and to hear your wonderful tour of the building, the love and knowledge you have of that place is mind blowing. And I tell you that as a history nerd, I found it mind blowing what you know
Well, I
about.
definitely appreciate that because not that many people, comment on tours sometimes. So that's awesome to hear, and I thank you.
Oh, they need to come on. They need to come on the tour and actually appreciate. I mean, I'm used to researching. I'm
Hmm.
used to it. I do it on a regular basis. But just going through the timeline of the house, the amount of information you have to be able to, it's not just like one specific period. Like I noticed a lot of places, you're just talking about the Civil War, or you might even just be talking about its World War II usage. But this one, you have got, well, nearly 3 centuries worth. You need to be
Yeah,
able to,
yeah, it's quite the task to give a tour because, like you said, it's not focused just on a colonial house or a Victorian era house. It spans pretty much the entirety of American history.
It does,
So
yeah.
it is a daunting task, and it's kind of a challenge because you don't want to leave out any part of it because the whole story of the house and the property is all enveloped in all of the histories.
Yeah,
Every little piece matters. So
yeah,
it's a really challenging house to interpret, to try to save, and try to get the history out because it's just such a complex little piece of history.
yeah. So how did you first get involved in it?
So that's a long story, but
Go on, we've
it's
got
a good
time. We've got
it's a
time,
good
Kyle.
story. So the house is in Fieldsboro, New Jersey.
Hmm.
That's maybe 10, 15 minutes outside the capital of Trenton.
Hmm.
So I'm from New Jersey all my life, been in this area. So I just started, I think, in 2018, 2019
Okay.
ish. I started doing a lot of family research, and I always loved history. So I started tracing my lineage back, and I found that my family was from this area, even back into the Revolutionary War,
Wow.
all that. So that was really cool. And then I stumbled upon the White Hill Mansion, and I was like, I just have to go to this place and help volunteer. And as soon as
Mm.
I stepped foot in the place, it was kind of like a good feeling. I was like, this
Yeah.
is weird. This is where I need to be. And I just started volunteering, and it snowballed from there. And I just started giving tours and just got into the history aspect of it. And I was all about researching the history, just telling
Mm.
the story of this house that I thought was kind of a little bit under um, appreciated in the local history and whatnot.
Mm.
And I thought, well, you know what, this is I guess my calling or my whatever. So I just went full into it.
Mm.
And then it turned out it to be haunted too, which spawned me into the paranormal. So it was kind of like a little stepping stone into everything for me. But yeah, I just stumbled upon it and here I am. And then a little bit later, I found out that I had some family ties to the house, which is interesting. So
Wow.
I had a great grandfather who was the mayor of Fieldsboro in the 30s, 40s. And then when it was a restaurant in the 70s, my grandparents used to work there, and my dad was a busboy when it was a restaurant. So I didn't
Hey.
find that out. Yeah, I didn't find that out until a little bit after I started, volunteering there. I was talking to my dad. I'm like, yeah, I volunteered at this place, the White Hill Mansion. Then he was like, yeah, that's the mansion that we always told you about that we worked at. And I never put two and two together when I was little because my grandparents and them would always be talking about the mansion. It was always
Yeah.
called the mansion, not White Hill Mansion. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a cool, crazy story. And here I am 5, 6 years later, trying to just save and restore this amazing place.
That's that I mean I suppose as a child they might have mentioned it and you just
Hmm.
hadn't twigged, but to actually find out you had that much of a link to the place. But what you're saying about going in and just thinking I need to be involved in this place, and what I said in
Hmm.
my intro, that yes it is. I mean, you wouldn't mind me saying it is a bit run down. Obviously it's a
Yeah.
conservation project and everything
Hmm.
else. But when I saw it, I remember as we drove up for the Paracon, as we drove up in the car, I genuinely wanted to give it a hug. I didn't feel I know some people have said they feel intimidated when they see it and they feel the attic window is ominous and everything.
Hmm.
I I didn't feel any of that at all, weirdly. And I'm British, so I shouldn't
Yeah.
possibly
It's
feel it with
true.
its history.
True.
But
There was very contentious times back then.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I didn't. I just felt the place. I just felt it just wanted affection in a weird way. I didn't. Yeah, I mean we'll talk about some of the different areas in a second, but I didn't. Some buildings I've walked up to and I thought, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel it with that one with White Hill.
White Hill does it. It has that, and you're not the first person to say that. And especially, it's cool coming from you because you really didn't know anything about it coming
No,
into it or any
nothing,
of it. So,
nothing.
but yeah, people do. It has that warming, like even though it's run down, even though it needs a lot of work, it has that warming, homey feeling. And I
Yeah.
can't. I just can't place it, but I know exactly what you're doing. A lot of people have felt the same way. They're like, this place is amazing, and they love it.
Yeah, I'd say I didn't. I mean, even the attic area, which
Hmm.
we'll get onto the different areas in a minute, but even the attic, that some of the sort of the paranormal investigations I watched were like, oh, I don't like it up here. I don't like it up here. The only thing I didn't like about it is it felt overly hot up there. I
Hmm.
felt very like I couldn't breathe, like it was
Yeah.
airless. But most attics feel like that. I
True.
mean, my
Yeah.
husband used to do loft conversions for a living, and
Hmm.
he would say every loft you get up to, like attic, what we call an attic, we call a loft, what you call an
Gotcha.
attic. And he said you'd go up to them, and yeah, it's airless up there because you haven't got open windows. You've got yeah, well, lots of things almost claustrophobic on you, so it does feel airless. But no, I don't know if it changes at night, but
It does.
does it?
It
Oh,
does.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking I would quite happily be left there on my own, as long as, I knew nobody was going to try and break in or anything. But
Yeah.
leave me on my own there with a flask of coffee, I'd be quite happy.
You're
Or is that
better
not
person than
normal?
me. I would not make it all night. Not that it's
Really?
horrifying, but like I've been in there enough where it changes and it's not scary. It's just you get that vibe where you're not alone. Now you're
Mm,
not, it's just it can change.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she slept there for 3 days when they filmed a show there. So,
Yeah. Paranormal lockdown, wasn't it?
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I tell her every time I see her, I'm like, there's no way I can't sleep in there. Just
I
more
I
power
can
to
I
you.
can sleep anywhere when I'm tired.
True.
I mean,
True.
I did an overnighter in one of our it's a very famous nuclear bunker near me. It would have housed like 600 people,
Oh
government
wow.
people, and I've slept overnight there before. And people are like, "How did you do it?" And I said, "I was tired." I mean, yeah, I can sleep pretty much anywhere when I need to, but I just didn't feel. Yeah, I felt the yeah, I felt the place was quite nice. But so let's just go over a bit of the history of the place. So it dates back to 1723. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's when the first family, the Fields family,
Hmm.
like founded the area, and the town Fieldsboro is named after them. But before the Fields were there, it was all Native American land.
Yeah.
We had four archaeological digs on site, and they found over 20,000 artifacts. And through that, they
Wow.
determined that way before any European settlers were there, probably for thousands of years, that was all Native American land.
Wow.
So we found a lot of really cool artifacts. They actually dug up an old axe head right on the front lawn
Mm.
during one of the digs, and apparently there's only been two found in New Jersey.
Wow.
So it's super super rare. So, but yeah, the main house, whatever you want to call it, that's
Mm.
there now, basically 1720s, 1730s area
Hmm.
is when that first happened in that area. So
And was that the first Robert Field?
yes, yep,
Yes. And then his son inherits, I
yeah, and
believe.
that's where most of the story of White Hill revolves around. We call him Robert number two.
Yeah, I just put Robert Field the second in my
Hmm.
notes, and then
Yep.
we've got Robert Field the third as well,
But yeah,
just to sort of confuse us historians that we're not looking at the
exactly.
right one. So, I mean, what I found interesting about Robert Field the second,
Hmm.
he's married to a lady called Mary.
Hmm.
They did have quite a few children, but I think only was it three survived.
Yeah, the only three lived to adulthood. I think they
Yeah,
had seven total.
yeah. So, and as tragic as that is for the 18th century, that's actually not unusual. That kind of mortality isn't sadly
No,
unusual.
yeah, it was fairly
Um,
uncommon, unfortunately.
yeah, I mean it's and I see it when I'm looking at English. It's
Hmm.
English as well and British records as well. I see it when I'm looking at sort of mortality for the British. Regardless whether you had money or not, unfortunately, a lot of children, if they made it to about five or six, they were normally guaranteed to make it to adulthood. But if they didn't
Yep,
make it to five or six, then if they got ill before they were five, sadly. But that's why
yep,
people had big families as well, because that was one of the reasons. But
yeah.
so he's married to Mary. Now, what I found fascinating about Robert Field, the second, and I have to quantify that, the second, um, was he his death.
Yes, his
Now,
death was very mysterious.
he for anyone who doesn't know where White Hill is, it's almost pretty much on the banks of the Delaware River.
Correct.
And the Delaware River, for anyone who's now, I've never really studied the War of Independence, I'll be honest. Not
Hmm.
not because I'm annoyed at you ungrateful Americans wanting to get rid of us British when we were doing a good thing and anything
Hmm.
like that. And when I worked for an American firm, they couldn't understand why I didn't particularly want to party on July the 4th. They thought I was
Gotcha.
being
Yeah.
rude. No, I did party. I had hot dogs and popcorn like everyone else. But, you know, when it's permeating through the office, you can't say no. But the point is, it's not something that's ever had to come up. So I did have to do some speedy research on that one.
Yeah.
Now, he actually did die just before the war broke out, didn't he? He died at the beginning of 1775, and the war started
Correct.
around the summer of
Yeah.
1775.
Yeah. Yep.
But he was in his canoe. I believe was he paddling to his bigger boat
Yeah.
or
So
something?
that's where yeah, that's where the story gets a little I guess get some holes in it. Um
Okay.
so yeah, basically I believe it was in January of 1775.
Hmm.
Um Now Robert Field, he was very socially and politically connected.
Hmm.
He was very, very wealthy. He had multiple businesses, even had businesses down in Philadelphia. Very, very wealthy, shipping, all kinds of stuff. He was just involved in a little bit of everything. Typical American businessman, had things going on all over. But he also was involved in the politics of, lead up to the American Revolution. So he was a part of a committee in New Jersey, and every colony had one. And
Hmm.
it was a way that they kind of organized themselves opposing the British taxes and all that before the lead up of the American Revolution. Um, so the story goes that we've heard, and the documentation that kind of goes along with it, is that one night in January of 1775, he went out on the Delaware River, which is directly behind the house. They had their
Hmm.
own wharf. He had his own boat. He took a small boat to one of his bigger boats and was supposedly going down to Philadelphia. Now, there's two different versions of this. He went to go meet a pioneer, which I have no idea what that means. Or he went to one of these, like a secret meeting involving the politics of the American Revolution right before it broke out.
Hmm.
But we don't know for sure. All we do know is that he had a servant or a slave with him. And when the servant and slave got back to White Hill, Mr. Fields wasn't with him. And they asked this slave or servant multiple times, like, what happened to Mr. Fields? And there was like four or five different stories he came up with. None of it made sense. Um, so they started a search. 5 days later, they found Mr. Fields on the Pennsylvania side of the Delaware River.
Hmm.
And the story goes he had a gash on his head and water in his lungs. And kind of where the political climate of the local area was kind of hot leading up to a possibility of a revolution. They didn't know if it was like foul play, like he actually like maybe he got drunk, fell off, or was foul
Hmm.
play, either politically motivated, or there's a possibility it may have been business related because he had a lot of stuff going on in that time period. But we don't know. And that's where the story ends with Mr. Fields. They just kind
Wow.
of like, yep, it was accidental drowning. That's a shame. And then they kind of wrapped him up pretty much in the story. It was like, boop, that's it. So that's all we really know about his fate.
Well, the weird thing is, I mean, I say I've read the account, and I read that the slave tried to throw an oar to him for him to grab
Hmm.
onto. The other one thing, I think it was I think it was Katrina was interviewing you guys for Travel the Dead, and he said that he liked a bit too much. He liked to drink, shall we
Exactly.
say? And could he have stood up in the canoe, started like spouting off what he thought, was a bit drunk, banged his head as he went over. But is the Delaware's is it a very fast moving?
It has very strong currents.
Right,
So it doesn't look like it's moving fast, but once you get into it, there's very strong rip currents and everything. So
right,
it is very dangerous, and especially in the month of January. I
right.
mean, it's ice cold here, so that was
Yeah.
another big concern.
Okay. Okay. So he could have been if they were. I mean, I do know from
It could have been an accident, but it also could have been,
foul
foul
play.
play, or there could have been a motive behind it, but it's just I don't think we'll ever find that answer out,
It would be
unfortunately.
interesting to know what happened to his servant if he
Exactly.
stayed in service
Yeah.
or not, because if he suddenly had money and didn't need to be in service anymore. Huh.
Exactly. It's very it's I've researched it, our organizations have researched it. What's really cool about when you start researching this stuff, like we had a lot of the information that was established. But once you
Mm.
start looking in, history changes a little bit because you find new information.
Yeah.
So like Robert Fields, for as long as we kind of knew the established history was, he was a Quaker, didn't drink. He was like the perfect, you know, statesman, everything. And then we started to find some records, and it found out like he had a drinking problem allegedly. He got kicked out of the Quakers for having a drinking problem. He was involved in selling guns to the Native Americans. He was involved in privateering, and we're kind of researching that he may have been involved in the slave trade in the area at the time in some
Right.
form or fashion. So it kind of was like, wait a second, we always thought, poor Mr. Fields, was trying to do the best he could, but now maybe there is a little bit more to this, alleged foul play, but we just don't know. But we're still researching it, and it's just unfortunate that more people didn't write things down back then, but
Wouldn't it be cool though if you're
it
doing
would
some
be.
restoration to the property
Hmm.
and you take a panel off and there's Mary's diaries?
Exactly.
I mean,
That would answer a lot of our
that would be
ongoing
amazing.
questions, our
I
ongoing questions.
mean,
But
I'd
yeah,
be,
that's where the meat and potatoes of White Hill's story is. It revolves around him and his unfortunate death, and that kind of
yeah.
like set the stage for the events that came after.
But no, I think if you sort of messaged me and said, guess what we found in the paneling? Like we found a diary by Mary. I'd do a happy
Yep.
dance for you from over here
Oh
because
my,
that
yeah,
would
it
be
would
so
be
exciting.
it would be amazing. Hopefully one day. You never know.
I'll keep my fingers crossed. I'll keep my stranger things have happened.
They sure have.
So you've got poor Mary here with
Yep.
young children. Her husband's died in mysterious circumstances. He's probably he's got some people who would go to basically go to war for him because they believed
Hmm.
in but he's got other people who possibly absolutely despise him because of the stance he
Hmm.
was taking on things. She gets branded as a colonial sympathizer because, isn't it, she has dinner with someone from the
Yeah, so
American Navy?
yeah, so she was in a tough position after her husband's death. So she was pregnant at the time of her husband's death with her seventh child. That would have been Robert Fields III, who she was pregnant with.
Right.
But after his death, she was basically left. They were the height, the estate of White Hill, back then was over 600 acres. So she had all that to deal with and maintain. She also had businesses of his to maintain. She was pregnant. She had 7 kids, and then basically the American Revolution pretty much broke out shortly after that.
Mm.
So yeah, she really kind of tried to just worry about her family and her property, but she got kind of pulled into the American Revolution, just like many people did in the
Mm.
local area, because of her strategic location on the Delaware River between um, Philadelphia and Trenton. This
Hmm.
was a prime place where people would come from Philadelphia to get to New York. So there was a constant flow of people, and it's very strategic. So in the lead up to the American Revolution, before the Continental Navy was formed, they just kind of had privateers and whatnot. So
Hmm.
one night she was visited by this Captain Houston, and he basically was the precursor to the Continental Navy. He stopped there at Mary's house, commandeered some supplies, and had dinner with her. And of course, some of the local people were, British supporters, loyalists, and they reported her to the local authorities, and that's where, she was visited by the British Army multiple times. They thought she was harboring patriots, but the way she was able to kind of navigate all that was very, very smart. She was a woman of means. She was actually able to get them to leave a couple of times. Like, listen, I don't want anything to do with your war. I'm just trying to survive here with my
Yeah.
family. Come on in, look, So there was a couple times that we have documents that the British Army came in, kicked in her back door, ran through the house, scared her mother half to death on the second floor. No, they never found any rebels there or whatnot. So
I mean, the more I read about Mary, the more I admire her and think if she'd been born now, she'd probably be a CEO of a huge company or
yeah,
something.
we we
She
we
that kind of person.
we gotta call her the matriarch of the mansion. I mean,
Yeah.
what she was able to do in that time period is a big reason we think why the house is even still here.
Yeah.
She was visited by the Hessians right before
I saw
Washington.
that they demanded to be able to stay there or something. They turned it into
Hmm.
their one of their headquarters or something, didn't they,
Yep.
during the war?
Yeah, so right before Washington crossed the Delaware, the Hessians were, fighting on the British behalf, and they were all over from Trenton all the way up to White Hill and Pass. They were all over the area, and it was a really bad winter. So the next town over from White Hill or Fieldsboro is Bordentown. They were a whole bunch of them were quartered in Bordentown, and they were notoriously known for not being the nicest of troops.
Mm,
They were just going in people's houses, taking their furniture, breaking down their fences to keep warm, just doing whatever they wanted to do. Mary kind of lucked out. She got a knock on her door at 4 o'clock in the morning, I think 2 weeks before Christmas. And there was a Captain Rendon who was there, and he basically said like, "Hey, we want to quarter in your house for the winter." And she tried to get him to go away. She was like, "No, no, thanks." And he was like, it doesn't work like that."
mm.
But she really lucked out because this Captain Rendon brought all of his own supplies. He never took anything from Mary.
All right.
Um, he gave Mary some help. One of her daughters was sick, and he gave her personal doctor, his personal doctor, helped save her life. So she
Wow.
actually wrote a letter to her sister who was living in Princeton at the time, that she said Captain Rendon is the nicest little Dutchman she's ever met. So she really lucked out. Um,
Because
but
the
again,
Hessians were German, weren't they? Aren't they?
yes,
They're
yep,
German, classed as German. Yeah.
exactly. And she was a wealthy widow landowner at the time.
Mm,
So we think she had a lot of suitors. And there was actually a Captain Karl von Donop who was pretty much head of all the Hessian troops here. And he actually came to the house and had tea with Mary twice in the front parlor. So we were kind of speculating that he might have had a little fancy on Mary, rich widow in the area. He came over from Germany specifically for basically fortune and glory. But
mm.
unfortunately, Mary never took him up on that, and he was later killed in the war down at the Battle of Fort Mifflin, at the Battle of Red Bank
I was
across
going to
the.
actually say to you, I know that when I visited
Uh-huh.
Fort Mifflin, we
Hmm.
can see Jersey, New
Yep.
Jersey, from. Could we see White Hill from Fort Mifflin?
No, we're probably
No.
about 45 minutes away, so you
Okay.
no, nah.
Because I know that when I was stood there at Mifflin, I was like, "What are those lights over there?" And Greg O'Brien, who does all the paranormal stuff at Mifflin, absolutely wonderful man. He was like, "That's New Jersey," and I was so excited that I could see New Jersey from where I was standing. Um, It's crazy thing is I was into Bon Jovi. Well, I still do like Bon Jovi from about the age of 12. So any time mention of New Jersey, and I'm living on a prayer, and
There you are.
that's what's
Yep.
going through my head. So yeah. So I was very excited, like mature me was excited that that's New Jersey. Um, yeah, so she back to the sensible stuff. So
Yeah.
but she did remarry, didn't she? A Commodore
Yes,
Thomas Reed.
Thomas Reed. Yep. Yeah, she later remarried a Commodore Thomas Reed who before the war he was a very, I won't say famous, but very successful naval captain,
Mhm.
um merchant shipper or whatnot. Um During the war, he was about number 5 or 6 in the newly formed Continental Navy. So he was very prominent in his time period. His brother was George Reed from Delaware, who was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. So
Mhm.
he's very notable in Delaware history. And White Hill has a very complex history, and we have some ties to Fort Mifflin too, which I'll get into later. But yeah, Thomas
Okay.
Reed was her second husband. And what Mary was able to do during the Revolutionary War was she was actually able to get protection orders from the British and the Hessians, and then later on the Americans, which is a big reason why she was able to save the house. So she
Mm.
was able to work through all that strife through the war and got all those protection orders. So it's pretty cool what she was
She's
able to
amazing.
do.
I say, the more I learn about her, the more amazing
Hmm.
I think she is or was. She gives her son Robert the Third. He gets given Whitehill in 1797.
Yes, believe
Um,
so.
and he is actually married to the daughter of Richard Stockton. And
Yes,
Richard Stockton was one of the other signatories of the Declaration of Independence, which
yes,
is
yeah. He was
again is quite cool.
the Stockton family in New Jersey is one of the prominent families. There's actually a college named after him. Their home was up in Princeton, New Jersey, which is about 25 minutes away from here.
Morven? Is it?
Morven, yep.
Yep.
For a while, that was the residence of the governors of New Jersey for a long time.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, the Stockton family super prominent. Two of the Fields children married into the Stockton family.
yeah.
Um, and there was some kind of speculation or some research theories that if Robert didn't die on the Delaware River in 1775, that he may have been also one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. But unfortunately, we'll never know.
We'll never know.
But
Yeah.
we'll never know. So,
Well, so Robert III, he's
mhm,
given Whitehill. He's married to the daughter of Richard Stockton, whose mother has a wonderful name of Annis.
yes,
Um, in 1804, I won't actually repeat what notes I wrote because they're rude, but basically, Robert's made some bad decisions and he's about to lose
yes.
Whitehill.
So through the research over the years, the accepted story, and it's still kind of accepted, is that Robert got the mansion and he mismanaged the property and the businesses. He wasn't as savvy as his father and eventually got into financial jam, and the mansion and the property was almost up for sale, basically.
Mm,
But there is some research now that we're finding that he may have not been all of his fault. He may
right.
have inherited a lot of his father's bad business deals before he died. So we're just still trying to find that. But regardless, yeah, the Fields family estate was not in the greatest of financial times at his time, Robert III's.
And his wife's brother bailed them
Yes.
out.
Yes. Yeah,
So
his
now
wife's
you've got even
brother.
more of a
Yep.
Stockton link
Mm-hmm.
to the place. Now,
Yes.
I do want to ask, one of the things I read, and I can't remember where I read it, was that it did actually operate as a boarding house in that period.
So we think it may have,
Right.
because the one side of the house, up on the attic, there's three rooms, that are divided up into pretty small rooms. So we think it may have been used as a boarding house for
Hmm.
extra money,
Hmm.
coming in, or it could have been for used for servants. But we don't have a lot of records of why they did that to that part of the
Okay.
house.
Okay.
So,
Well, we've got a lot. I mean, we've obviously got another 150, 20 years
mhm.
that we could cover, but I'm going to
Yeah,
actually jump. I'm going to jump because otherwise we'll be talking for about 3 hours. I'm going to
exactly.
jump to 1922.
Yep.
And you know why I'm jumping?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why am I jumping to 1922, Kyle?
Because that's the most, well, one of the most important parts of the house, and I think that's why another reason it was saved for so long. So in 1922, um, during in the United States, prohibition was raging. Couldn't buy, sell, or consume alcohol. It was illegal. A guy named Heinrich Glink, or he went by Henry, bought the mansion and turned it into Glink's Mansion House, a famous restaurant that his family ran for almost 50 years.
Mhm.
But the first thing he did in 1922 was he dug the basement out 3 feet by hand and put a speakeasy in so he could have illegal alcohol there.
Right. Naughty boy.
Yes, it was fairly common in the United States at the
Yeah,
time.
it
Everyone
was.
was
I,
kind
I,
of
re
involved in it in a way or some way or form,
I remember when we visited the Shanley Hotel, because we did the
Hmm.
Shanley as well on our trip, that had, uh, uh, well, what they think was an illegal speakeasy. They even showed us where the secret entrance was by the phone booth.
Hmm.
So yes, I do. Hey, I've watched Bugsy Malone.
Hmm.
But I must admit, I find Prohibition weird anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, as well as I was looking up, it lasted for 13 years. I didn't realize it lasted that long.
Yeah,
Um,
they held on for a long time, and it was not a good time in the US then.
no, well, it was a good time for the gangsters because
True.
obviously they were the ones making money hand over fist, weren't
Hmm.
they? Sort of
Sure
getting people
were.
to buy their illegal alcohol. But I mean, you're saying Henry and his wife, Catherine or Katrina, whatever
Yes.
she was going by, they had two children,
Yep.
Henry and Catherine.
Yep.
Really imaginative.
Hmm.
They had two children. Now, we mentioned the attic earlier,
Yes.
and a lot of the sort of the paranormal things I've watched on YouTube and everything else, like Katrina and Heather's Travel the
Hmm.
Dead and all those, all mention how the attic spooks them.
Yes.
And I do remember, I mean, I'm not very tall, but I know you're quite tall. Wes was quite
Yes.
tall. Rachel was quite tall. And they were having to bend over double to get
Yes.
through to the playroom area.
Yes.
What's the playroom area for people? Paint the picture for me for people
All right.
listening,
So
Kyle.
give you a little background. So if you look at the house as it sits now, it looks like there's two houses put together, which basically it is. There's the house that Robert Fields the third built. I mean the second built, and then there's additions that they put on that we think were put on in the 1780s, 1790s. But every family that's lived in the house has done their own renovations over the years, and no one really there's no building permits. No one wrote anything down. So it's kind of an interesting house to walk through because you get all these architectural features and
Yeah,
whatnot. But if you're looking at the house, the left side of the house is an addition.
yeah.
And when you're in the attic, the way they put the addition in, it's really strange. There's like three little steps that you have to go down, then opens up again, and that's where those three rooms are.
Mm,
Now there was some rumors, and we can't confirm this with the historical context at all, is in the late 1800s, early 1900s, right before Mr. Glink turned it into a restaurant, that part of the attic was being used as a brothel, or
hmm.
being used for prostitution. But we can't prove it. It's more of like a local legend, local stories that we heard. Can't say that it wasn't, but also the records just show that there was a family there. So we really don't know. But down in that area, during the 1980s when it was a restaurant, even into the 90s, the kids that would come with their parents to work, that was the only area that wasn't open to the public. So they made it into their playroom up in that weird area. It's really, really strange back in there. So that was their place to play. I don't know why they picked the
So it
creepiest
wasn't during
part
the
of the
it
house.
wasn't during the Glenc's ownership that it was
No,
a playroom. It
during
was their family. Zoo can't Zoo.
Zuzak's
That's
were
the
the
one.
last
Yep.
family. Yeah. So during the Glink time period, the only thing that we do know is that Mr. Glink's one daughter, she had her bedroom up there and a sitting room for a short time, which I don't know how she did it without air conditioning because you were up there in May and it was 100. So
It
imagine
wasn't.
it
It was
in
stuffy.
July.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but other than that, we really don't know what that was used for. Um, there is some rumors that it was used as a boarding house for a time because of the close proximity to the Delaware River right behind the house, which was
Hmm.
heavily trafficked, and there's a railroad line right behind the tracks. I mean, right behind the house. So there's some rumors for that, but we really don't have a lot of history on the attic. And even like in colonial times, we have no idea what they used the attic for. Was it storage? Was it? We have no idea. So it's kind of a mystery, and I think that's what leads to a little bit of the paranormal up there too.
Okay. Yeah, because I was sort of thinking, well, they are looking at the census records for when the Glencs owned it.
Hmm.
They did on all the census records from 1930, 1940, 1950, they all had additional people living there with them who were
Yeah.
working in the restaurant, but they were all male and in their
Yes.
50s and 60s. So they wouldn't have had young children who would have needed a playroom. And by that point, I mean, Henry Jr., he fought in World War II. So he
Yep.
was sort of old enough to be fighting, and Catherine was only about 18 months younger than him.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have been children much. I mean, I don't
No.
know. They would have been children. They would have been small children when it was first opened because they were born in 1917 and 1918.
Yep.
But hmm, yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
it's very weird up there. Like we do know, like later on, it was used as a playroom, in
hmm.
later times, like 1980s, 1990s. But other than that, we don't know what it was used for. Even in the 1800s, we have no idea if it was additional space, like living space, or was it just an attic?
Hmm.
We don't know. There's no information on that much stuff, so
Well, I
it's
know
kind
in
of
the
a
UK,
mystery.
the attic space was
Hmm.
normally used for servants'
Yeah, and
quarters because that was
that's a
the
very good
obvious one.
possibility. That's a possibility too. We have very limited records of the families that lived there in the 1800s, and
Mm.
especially their servants. Like, so it's very possible it could have been used for servant space. That
Yeah,
would
no, I
make
know in the
sense.
UK that's commonly what attic spaces in
Hmm.
those kind of houses would be used for because of the fact it was the least desirable place to be because of like no air conditioning, and also it meant you
Exactly.
had two or three flights of stairs to go up, and everything else, and it was sort of putting them out of the way of other
Yeah.
people.
Out of sight,
Um,
out of mind kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, basically. So, what kind of what kind of experiences have people had in the attic? I mean, what experiences have you had yourself in that
I've
attic
had
space?
some crazy experiences up in the attic.
Okay.
So when I first started again at White Hill, like I totally was about the history. I wasn't even, I was like, cool, it's haunted, but I didn't, that wasn't my main motivation
Yeah.
that it was a haunted house. Um, so when I first started, I'm still very skeptical. But I was like, it's an old house. Weird stuff happens all the time. Like, you know, that's just how it is. But given tours there and whatnot, it always had like a strange vibe to me, and not necessarily like a bad evil vibe, but just had a different vibe than the rest of the house.
Yeah.
And then once I started getting into like some of the more paranormal stuff we were doing, one of the biggest things that happened to me up in the attic is we were doing a public ghost night. There's two sides of the attic. So you go up the main steps, there's a small room on the left, and then there's a bigger room on the right.
Hmm.
So everyone in the house, and there was a paranormal investigator kind of going over some equipment, was in the bigger room. Um, and I was standing in the hallway. Everyone was to my back, and the only way for them to get out of the attic was to go past me and down the steps. So I knew everyone in the house was behind me, and he was just going over equipment or whatnot. And I'm looking down the hallway into the smaller other room, and I'm just sitting there, and the room is pitch black. I think it's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just sitting there staring down the hallway, and the room is pitch black, and I see someone kneeling down, like looking for something on the floor. And it looks like a person, but a black shadow. But I can completely see the silhouette and the person just in, it's like a silhouette of a person, but it's like a real person sitting there. And I could see it in the darkness of the room. Like it was clear enough to see. And I'm like, my brain's going, that's weird because everyone's behind me. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden I seen its like head pop up. And again, it was just a dark shadow, like a shadow person, but I could see it clearly in the darkness of the room. It was darker than, the
Hmm.
darkness of the room, and it basically looked at me, had no face, and then it kind of crawled across the floor and hid behind the threshold of the room, of the door in that room, and it peeked out twice, and I saw head and shoulders twice, and
Wow.
that was kind of one of my first bigger experiences where I was like, okay, I know I'm not crazy and I know what I'm seeing, but I can't explain, or like my brain couldn't comprehend at the time
Yeah.
what was happening. And I'm like, I know there's no actual person and I know what I saw. Um, and it kind of, that one shook me up because it was like a good 30-35 second experience, which is long in the paranormal.
Hmm.
And what was weird about it is like we both saw each other and we both didn't know what to do. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah.
Like it was like, oh, he could see me, and I was like, I could see that, and then we both didn't know what to do, and we just kind of stood. It was just really strange experience.
Wow.
That's what I've experienced. Other people have experienced the same kind of thing up in the attic. Really intense, vivid shadow people. People have gotten disembodied voices, crazy EVPs. We left a recorder up there one night, and I think it was 12-hour recording. We got 3.5 minutes of a music box playing. Now
Wow.
there's no electricity, and there's nothing in the house that is going to make a music box play for 3 minutes. Like it's just
Why is it those
impossible.
music box ones are so ominous? I had something similar happen to me. The bunker I was talking about, I was
Hmm.
investigating that back in December. Nobody had one of those music, the music boxes that people use as
Gotcha. Yep.
like a REM pod, but it's a
Yeah.
music box. Nobody had one with us, and we got about 20 seconds of a music box playing, and then the divination we were doing went bonkers. It was just like something a sunny ram, and it's like this is a sort of 1950s nuclear bunker. You're not going to
Hmm.
get like an old-fashioned music box in here, and nobody had one. And it's I don't get scared. I'm more like I'm the one that runs to the noise, not away from
Uh-huh.
it. But it was just like, why is this? It does feel something like a horror film when you
It
get
is. It's
the old style music box playing.
it's like it's a little unsettling, and like
Yeah.
I've heard it with my ears,
Hmm.
like in the house, a few times. Like it happens. I won't say it happens all the time, but when you hear it, it sounds like straight up old carnival music, like Stephen King's It, like the clown's gonna pop out behind you. That's what it sounds like. And I'm like, is this real life right now? Like, what am I hearing? It sounds like there's a carnival in the. It's strange.
Have you
Um,
tried taking one in actually when there's an investigation and playing one?
I've never actually done that. That's a really good idea. Like a real old timey
Yeah.
music. That's a good idea. That might start something
Thank
up.
you. Yes,
Yeah, I gotta
trigger.
try that.
I'm
Yeah, that's a good
triggers
idea.
is my thing, Kyle. I love
Yeah.
thinking of trigger experiments for people too.
No one, I
That's my
don't think
thing.
anyone's ever tried like a
Ah,
serious like we've people have played music up there and whatnot, but not like an actual like wind up old
no,
school,
try and get
you
hold of
know.
one, and
Yeah, that's a
because
good idea.
it's almost like it sounds to me like they want one to play.
Hmm.
Yeah, let me know how that goes. Let me know
But
how that
yeah, up
goes.
there, yeah, I'm gonna try that. But yeah, up
Good.
there is kind of like a mix of everything. Like that's what I've experienced. Other people have experienced all kinds of things. And that's the one spot in the house up in the attic where people sometimes get like a very intense, uncomfortable feeling.
Mm.
But I just don't know. It seems like up there it's a little bit of everything. Like, and it's not like there's one specific kind of haunting. It just seems like whatever wants to interact with you comes out. And it could be, shadow person, could be disembodied voice, could be footsteps. Like you just never know.
I mean, it could even be something from the Native Americans as a channel the land for it to be
It,
attracted to it or
it
something.
it could be. Yeah, it definitely could be. We do have some Native American haunting reports, but they always seem to be on the outside of the house.
Yeah.
We've had a few people describe seeing a Native American full body apparition, um, on the outskirts of the house along the tree line, and always seems to be isolated in one spot. But you never know.
So was the prostitution links
Yeah,
related to the Glenks? And because the Glenk family is the one who's meant to have had links to the mob, is
yeah.
that
So we
correct?
think, yeah. So we don't know for sure, um, but we think that the alleged prostitution or bordello happened before the Glinks got there because the
All
story we
right.
heard is the Glinks got to the house, they went up there and they saw the three rooms and there was three beds in there, and that's where the story or whatever with the bordello kind of started. We
Ah,
don't even know if the Glinks started that, but that's the story we've heard, like local
right.
legend. Like nothing's ever in the time period of the Glinks, no one ever really wrote down like specific things. But Mr. Glink also, from our research and some of the family has told us his story is they were from Germany.
Mm,
He started down kind of right before the 1920s down in Trenton, New Jersey, which was the
mhm,
capital. He was a butler and a waiter at some of the bigger restaurants. So he kind of was rubbing elbows with the, social elites, the politicians at the time. So we kind of speculate, we don't know for sure that he may have had a little bit of backing from either, maybe mob related or
mm,
some politicians that gave him the funds and the means and the know-how to get this, because at that time White Hill was basically still a colonial house and he turned it into a operating restaurant, put a commercial kitchen in it, put the speakeasy in the basement. Like it,
mm,
it took a lot of capital, a lot of
mm,
time and stuff back then. So that's kind of what we think.
mm,
We do know that during his time period, because it was a speakeasy, um, that was the place to go to get alcohol and have a great meal. It's was out of the way. No one really knew of it too much. It's off the beaten path. Again, no one wrote down like, "Hey, Steve the mobster came here on this date," but it was kind of a known thing. We do know that in the 70s, Sammy the plumber, a famous New Jersey mobster, used to bring his mistress there. And
ah.
one of the hostesses actually asked him like, "Why do you come here?" And he goes, "Because the food's great and no one can find me." Um, so it's just during that time period there was so many people coming through and so many different, um, you know, politicians, socialites, because you could come and have a good time and get alcohol that you couldn't get anywhere else.
Well, I know that I found quite a lot of adverts for it from
Hmm.
1933. So
Yep,
it must have been after the end of Prohibition, and it's constantly talking about come and experience our Old English tap room. So,
exactly.
so the minute that Prohibition was lifted, it's like, look, we've got a bar. Come and have a
Yeah,
drink. Come and have a beer.
it is funny because we don't have hardly any pictures of the interior of White Hill. Even as it was a restaurant from 1922 to 1992, we hardly have any pictures of what it looked like on the inside. But we do have one picture from a newspaper. Um, is August 1st, 1933, right after Prohibition ended, and it's Mr. Glink standing in his bar going, "Hey, I just finished this bar. It's grand open. Ready to
Yeah.
come and have it," which we know it was there 10 years before that, but it's just kind of funny. He was just standing there like, "Grand opening, just finished it. Come on down."
Well, the thing is, he must have been quite well respected because I did find an interesting article from 1950.
Hmm.
in January 1950 in the Trenton Evening Times, and there was some soldiers had done gone AWOL from Fort Dix, which
Hmm.
you said is what, about half an hour away or
Yeah, about
something like that.
about so. Yep.
Two of them had hijacked a taxi and stolen it and nicked his money and everything, the driver's money. The other two had stolen Henry's car.
Oh my God.
They stole, I mean, if he had genuinely had mob links, you couldn't have probably chosen, they're not going to like, apparently they were caught within 30 minutes driving along Route 25 by the
Oh my
state
God. Yeah.
trooper.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
I can only imagine. Like Fieldsboro today is the smallest town or village in New Jersey. There's only like 300 to 400 residents. So
Oh.
back when Mr. Glink's time, like there's only one pizza place there now. So Mr. Glink's restaurant was pretty much the, economic place to
Mm.
be in the town. So it was a place to be for all over. So everyone probably knew him, and they probably saw his car like, oh, there
Hmm.
goes Mr. Glink's car. We
Yeah.
better call the cops. So yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know that story until right now.
Yeah,
That's
no,
cool.
I say I was laughing when I read it.
Hmm.
But yeah, they stole his car. I mean, I'm presuming it means Henry Senior and not. I don't think
Yeah,
Henry Junior would have been living there at that point. But he might actually no, he could have been. I suppose it could be Henry,
he could have been. Yeah.
one of the
Yep.
Henrys. Anyway, stole the car. But yeah, so I mean, we've talked about the attic space, which is a notorious
Hmm.
area. Let's drop down to the basement and talk about the bar because you showed us around there, and
Yes.
I felt I'm quite claustrophobic in there. It didn't feel
Yes.
it does feel, like the ceiling. It could be because of the dark wood, and it's
Hmm.
beautiful, the dark wood and everything else. A lot of people have said that they don't feel welcome when they're in there. They feel like they need to get out. I was reading.
Yes. Yeah. So the attic and the basement are two of the like the really hot spots. I mean, the whole house is active, but they seem to be,
Mm,
the consistent hot spots, which makes sense for me for the basement because for 50 years it was a bar. I mean, even longer, people were always there, all that energy in there. But yeah,
mm,
people have different experiences down there. It seems like there's kind of like two kind of hauntings down there. So you kind of have like a happy-go-lucky kind of haunting, right? Where it's a bar, like you play swing music, you play
hmm
German music, you get all kinds of fun activity. But then there seems to be um a more intense, I don't want to say dark because that's not the right word, but like a male presence or a male spirit that we've gotten a lot of reports that comes out and kind of the vibe kind of changes. And he's not like this evil spirit, but he's not a nice dude, I guess is the best way to say it.
mm,
Um, kind of cranky, says a lot of bad words through different devices, but a lot of times that's what that throws off, and that's what people are picking up on is that just uncomfortable feeling from him.
mm.
We believe. Again, we don't know for sure,
I
but
mean,
yeah.
he could have been almost like an enforcer down there during
Yes.
Prohibition, and if he thinks you're not supposed to, he doesn't, your name's not on the list. So why have you come down here? Almost, it's
Yeah,
protecting it.
it's kind of interesting because over the years we've gotten kind of that vibe through different people investigating and telling us what they've experienced and what we've experienced. We've had a medium channel him twice.
Hmm
I was there and I was again skeptical. I was like, okay, is this really happening? Like whatever. But he seems to be super intelligent.
Mm,
He seems to know why we're there, why people come there. And like he knows my name, he knows Dawn, our president's name, he recognizes us. Um, so it's a very interesting kind of haunting thing because I'm like, man, he's fully aware of what's happening. And
mm.
the one thing that made me laugh is when he was channeling through the medium, we had a K2 on the table, and he looked at her, the person who's channeling was like, these things are stupid and they don't work. And it made me laugh really funny because I'm like, man, even the ghost is like the K2 is stupid, don't use it. Um, so it's kind of it's kind of interesting the dual hauntings down there. And it
Yeah.
seems like when he comes out or this male spirit comes out, um, all the rest of the spirit activity kind of stops and it seems to be isolated around him. Um,
Wow.
but we've had people. we've had an investigation, a public investigation. I think somebody videotaped this where they had not a K2, they had a REM pod on the bar, and they were like, "Is are we talking to the male spirit that people interact with down here?" And it was going off intelligently, and they had like a 5 minute conversation, and it wasn't just lighting up. They would be like, "If you don't, if specific questions, specific colors on the REM
Mm.
pod," and it was pretty crazy for me to see. So. It's just really cool down there.
Yeah, say again, I wasn't intimidated down there. I just felt a bit claustrophobic because it's quite dark and sort of,
Hmm.
um, yeah, yeah, it just felt a bit claustrophobic. But when you were sort of saying that they dug it all out by hand and they did,
Yep.
wasn't there like a cupboard or something in there that you can't work out
Yes.
what it was for?
So that's interesting you bring that up. So I think I showed it to you.
See, I did listen. I did listen when
Yeah,
you were showing us around.
it's this is going to be great because I showed you it's on the one end of the bar and it's kind of like built into the wall. So
Yeah,
you open it up and it's like kind of like a domed thing. Like it almost looks like could have been like an old coal chute or something.
yeah.
Um, so this past December, we had another archaeological dig, and they know that back in colonial times, there were two tunnels that ran from the basement down to the Delaware River. They were there in the 1700s. So they know they were there. They traced the one that wasn't on the bar side of the basement um, down to where it would have went down to the river somewhere. They both collapsed in the 60s and were filled in, but they were there during Mr. Glink's time period. So the archaeologists, before they wanted to dig, they wanted to do ground penetrating radar,
Uh-huh.
and they were looking for the other tunnel, and they said, can we come down in the basement and do some ground penetrating radar? So they came down the basement, and when they opened those doors, which they didn't know anything about, we just thought it was a coal chute. They opened it up and they're like, oh my God, this is probably the tunnel that leads out to the other one that we're looking for. But and they determined that by the dome and the way it was the archway and the way it was manufactured and built. So they were really excited, and I was even more excited because there's a that newspaper article I was telling you about with the picture of Mr. Glink standing in his newly opened basement. And if you look in the picture, he's standing at the corner of the bar, and that entrance to the possible tunnel is behind him, and there's a bookcase in front of it,
Ooh.
which goes with some of our stories that we've been told over the year, like the local stories and the legends that Mr. Glink during Prohibition was somehow involved. We don't know how much with, you know, transporting and supplying illegal alcohol. And the rumor was that they used the White Hill tunnels to store the alcohol, and that at nighttime they would go down and they'd deliver it up and down the local river towns, which would make sense in this picture because he has it hidden by a bookcase.
Yeah. So
So
but
it's
what would the tunnels have been used for before? I mean, it's if they were 18th century, that's before like
yes,
the slave railroad.
yes. So we think that they know that the tunnels were put in the 1700s because of documents.
Yeah.
And they apparently, and this is what the archaeologists and historians, so it was pretty common at the time. To have that, especially if you had servants or slaves, because they didn't want anyone to see the servants or slaves. And
Ah,
especially where White Hill is, it's on the highest hill in the area along the river. So there's a very, very steep bank down to the Delaware. So when I had to get all their supplies up, the only way they would have had to do it was go up a road all the way around, and especially in like
right,
bad weather conditions, it would made more sense to just dig two tunnels and just go right up into the house.
right.
So apparently it was pretty common, and that's why they
Ah.
were in there for functionality and a purpose back then. Um, and that leads into too during Mary's time, like we don't know if the British knew they were there or what they were used for during that time period also. So
It's a
kind of
shame they're
interesting.
filled in, isn't they? Could do
Yeah.
a brilliant vigil if they were
Yeah.
safe down there to see if anyone communicated what.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I was claustrophobic enough in the basement. I'm not offering to go down one of those
Exactly.
tunnels.
And I always wanted to know, like, especially like in the tunnels, because they were used probably for hundreds of years, like
Mm,
what kind of stuff you could have dug up in there if they didn't,
mm,
get filled in. And even the basement, when Mr. Glink dug that out 3 feet by hand, that's 3 feet of dirt. And he,
yeah,
that's almost 200 years. When he came in, the house was there for 200 years, all that stuff that he probably found,
yeah.
um, in the basement. So we've also
Wow.
had some reports that in the 1900s, before Mr. Glink was there, that the family was doing some work in the basement and they dug up a whole bunch of Hessian swords, weapons, and old beer bottles. And we got
Wow.
that from a family memoir. It's a very short family memoir, but we were like, what, why is there not more information on that? Because that would be like the coolest thing ever. If I was a kid in the
Yeah.
house and like my dad and uncle were digging in the basement, they're like, "Oh, look,
We
some
found a
swords and
sword.
guns." Be like, "What?" Um, and there is another family story that in the 50s, they had to get one of the fireplaces checked or serviced or something, and the guy came in and he looked up there and he pulled out a Hessian sword that was hidden up in the one of the fireplaces. So we're
Have you
still
sent
trying.
anyone up the chimneys to see if there's any more?
We've looked, we haven't seen them, but
Ah,
we're trying to track down where, that could have gone because that was in the Glink family time period. So just a
yeah.
lot of cool stuff that over the years you just don't know
Wow.
about.
Wow. So what's this Fort Mifflin link?
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
teased me with that earlier.
Yes. So go back a little bit to Mary Field's second husband, Thomas Reed.
Hmm.
Um, he was very high up in the Navy. And he was in charge of the water defenses around Fort Mifflin. So they used to sink these big logs that were weighted down with a sharp point with a steel
Hmm.
cap on it. So you couldn't see them, but if you didn't know the right approach up to the fort, you'd get your ship would get impaled on it and get
I think
stuck.
the
And
the
then
dredger that is based
yeah,
next door, is it the
hmm
Navy or the Coast Guard or
yes,
but they pick them up every so often because I know they've got a few in the
yes.
the Mifflin
Yeah,
Museum.
Fort
Yeah.
Mifflin has, and it's a really long French name, and I'm not even going to begin to even say it, but Thomas Reed was apparently in charge of the defenses down there. During the Battle of Fort Mifflin, right before Philadelphia fell to the British, um, Thomas Reed and his good friend Commodore Barry, known as one of the fathers of the American Navy, they had two brand new warships that were just built. The original 13 ships that were built for the newly formed Continental Navy. Um, they had two ships there, and when the British Navy came up and attacked Philadelphia and Fort Mifflin, they had nowhere else to go except upriver, and upriver is White Hill. So Thomas Reed actually um, anchored off the White Hill in 1777 after Philadelphia fell, and that's where we think Mary Fields met Thomas Reed for the first time.
Oh.
It's kind of cool that right behind the house we had Thomas Reed with a brand new warship, the USS George Washington, and then his friend Commodore John Barry had his ship anchored off White Hill, the USS Effingham, and they both were scuttled there. So they were sunk in a way that they could come back later and hopefully bring them back up. But they sunk them so they didn't fall into enemy hands because they couldn't get back out to sea with them. So it's kind of a cool tie-in that the whole basic U.S. Navy was up at White Hill and the next town over, Bordentown, hiding out from the British during that time period.
Right, is the thing that you're talking about that was embedded in the water a chevaux de frise point?
Yes, that's it.
There!
That's
I
it.
knew I'd got a photo of it when I visited
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and occasionally they dredge them up every once in
Yeah,
a while. So,
that was
um,
one. The one I think I got the photo. It was
mhm.
an actual one that they it's in the museum, and it's yes it is. I mean it basically looks like a oversized arrow in a
Yes.
way, but yeah, it's I think this is an original. Yes, recovered from the Delaware River in 2009
Yep.
by
So
the
him
Captain of the Army
engineers.
Corps of Engineers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was our tie-in with Fort Mifflin, and
Oh.
Reed was down there at Fort Mifflin, So that's kind of cool, and that's how we think um, Mary Field met her second husband when he first came to White Hill, and he
Wow.
stayed around after because they had to sink their ship there, so
Hmm.
it wouldn't fall in enemy hands.
Hmm.
He stayed around there for a long time, and it was wintertime, so we're thinking he probably stayed at White Hill. So, but we can't prove it yet. So
Oh,
one
I
day,
mean, one
one
day
day we will.
things will start to come up. Well, I mean, we've been talking for over an hour, and it feels
Yes,
like we've only been talking for 10 minutes because
exactly.
your passion for the place, Kyle, it's intoxicating. It really is, and yeah, I've really enjoyed talking to you. So let's let's just what's has how do I word this? What has most surprised you about Whitehill since you became involved in the building?
Paranormally or just like overall in general?
Overall, anything, historical, paranormal, how people react, how it's
I
changed your
think
life.
Yeah.
Anything.
I mean, I think overall, what's most impactful and what's so amazing to me is we're known for being a haunted house, and that's 90% of where our funding comes through.
Mm.
And I say every day, thank God we're haunted because, I mean, it's really the only way we have a shot of saving this place. Um, but we get people that come in just for the ghosts, just for the
Yeah,
paranormal. And then once we start telling them about the history, they're utterly shocked and amazed that there's that much history.
yeah,
And it seems like because we're not just a colonial house, we span the whole thing of American history from
yeah,
beginning to end, Native American all the way up to modern times, that everyone can kind of like find their little niche where they can
yeah.
kind of be like, I can relate to that. Like Mary Field's story. Anyone who's had hard times can relate to that story. It's the human element. I think it's so cool that when people come and visit White Hill, they leave with so much history, they leave with some cool paranormal experiences, and they kind of get a better feel for history, in my opinion.
Mm.
So
Well,
it's
that's
just it's just
you
amazing.
music to my ears because I always tell people why I do what I do is for those people who sort of focus on the history and think anyone who looks into the paranormal is a bit mad, a bit woo-woo. They can actually see, well, actually, there is a logic to it. And those people who are only into the paranormal and think history is boring and dusty, they actually can start to understand why history isn't actually boring and dusty. And the two meet and connect. A bit like you've done. You didn't know anything about the paranormal. You knew the history. Now you know about more about paranormal. And what you're saying about the people who've come in for the ghosts and have gone
Hmm.
away learning about people like Mary Field. And I mean, didn't even mention, so I said about Annis Stockton. Wasn't she one of the
Hmm.
first ever American female poets to be published? And I mean,
Yep.
things like that. These kind of people, they're amazing people who should be learning about. And if it's because you're interested in ghosts that you learn about them, it doesn't matter.
No, so
It's,
be it.
yeah,
So be it. And it's just so rewarding for me because I get to tell these people's stories who I think have been lost to history a little
yeah,
bit and what they went through to get us, especially like over here in the US, to get us to where we are today. Like it's so important not to forget where you came from
yeah.
so you don't repeat, you know, the same thing.
Yeah, you ungrateful
So,
colonists. Remember where
yeah.
you came from.
So, yeah, it's just so cool. I mean, and for me the paranormal is just it's just a plus because it brings so many more groups of
Yeah.
people from different mindsets in, and it's just cool to see.
I agree. I agree. Well, how do people find out more about White Hill? How do they arrange to come and visit if they're in New Jersey or if they've got a group out there who wants to hire it to do an event, what do they need to do?
So we offer paranormal investigations, we offer public and private. We offer history tours, and all that can be found right on whitehillmansion.org. You can book directly right on the website if you want to come do an investigation, you want to come see it. We're on Facebook, the Friends of White Hill Mansion, Instagram, White Hill Mansion, and TikTok, YouTube, all that. You'll find us. And we're 100% volunteer nonprofit organization. So I don't get a salary. No one gets a salary. Everything we bring in through all of our programs goes right back into saving, preserving, and trying to restore this amazing piece of American history.
Brilliant. And don't forget, you've got your Paracon the first
Yes.
weekend in May.
Yes.
And
May 3rd, 2025, the Paracon. March 22nd, 2025, we're having a history day with a whole bunch of reenactors. We have some British Army reenactors coming, so
be
that'll be
nice
cool.
to them. Be
Be
nice to the
nice.
British. We're not all bad. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kyle. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I do hope I get to come back at some point. I will be in the States this May because I'm coming over for Penhurst, but that's 2 weeks after yours, so
Yes.
I can't do both this year, unfortunately.
No.
But you never know. I am like the proverbial bad penny. You never know when I'm going to turn up. So
Gotcha.
that's been the absolutely wonderful, and you could probably tell from the way he spoke, as passionate as he is about Whitehill. If you hadn't heard of it, go and look it up. Go and look at the website. Go and follow them on Facebook. If you're in the States or if you're going to the States and you want to do an investigation there, contact them. Honestly, the place is beautiful. It's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Um, But that's been Haunted Histories for the first show in January. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep tuned to see who else is coming up this year. And yeah, I'll speak to you all soon. Have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.